Hello, I'm Simon Calder. Welcome to the new spring season of Back to the City. It is spring. It feels a little bit like spring.
A little bit.
Today I'm joined by Annie. Welcome from Loki's Folly. Annie is one of three members who are all siblings, but also best friends
Yes.
of Loki's Folly. I just recently saw you play with Porcupine, recent guests, at the 7th Street entry for your record release of Sisu. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, Sisu.
And you were just, before the interview, you were explaining what Sisu means. So what does Sisu mean for the viewers?
Yeah, so Sisu is the Finnish word. It's kind of the concept, it's not directly translatable, but it's like the concept of your inner strength or your ability to persevere through hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And felt important for this album, considering, how much time we've put into this record and how much of our lives we've kind of put into it, and also going through the pandemic with it. It just felt like a very accurate title for
yeah. So the perseverance and the pushing through.
Yeah.
Everyone can relate to that with navigating the last few years.
Yeah.
And then that's also been the time period when the band has come into fruition.
Yes. Yeah.
Someone that I was happy to see at 7th Street entry for the record release was my old friend Ryan.
Yeah.
And then I was even happier to see him jumping up on the stage and performing. Which of the songs on the record does Ryan play on?
Well, for the show we played two covers with him. We played Books About UFOs by Husker Du and Just Like Anyone by Soul Asylum, which
he is the guitarist in.
Exactly. It made it quite a special performance. And then we also had him play on Beaches and Peaches, doing some of the extra instrumentation, the glockenspiel, ukulele.
I never expected to witness Ryan from Soul Asylum playing glockenspiel at the 7th Street entry.
Yeah.
But I did. So, and Ryan was initially your guitar teacher.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. He taught all three of us. So he taught me guitar, my sister drums, and now Oscar bass, now that he's starting to learn bass.
Wow. Congratulations, in the meantime, not just on the release of the record, but in being deemed the Gen Z grunge band for us to be paying attention to by none other than Teen Vogue.
Yeah.
That's not a small thing.
No, it was, I feel like my brain went somewhere else when I got the email from Teen Vogue. Because I've been a fan of that magazine for ever, so to get that email and for them to want to cover us was just so exciting.
So we're going to dive into all the songs on the record, and any of the music that the viewers are hearing over the course of the episode is Loki's Folly music from the record. But before we dive into the themes, let's just focus a little bit more on the story of the development of the band. If I understand correctly, your first ever show was on your 15th birthday? 16th birthday. The reason why I'm thinking 15th is because of The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Because one of the songs on the record is called Little Mermaid.
Yes.
And I liked at the 7th Street entry, you were careful to highlight that it was a Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid, as opposed to the Disney Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Could you highlight why it's significant that it's referencing the original fairy tale?
Yeah.
Why did you highlight that?
Yeah. Well, I think the original fairy tale, first of all, the references are more directly related to that story, since it is so different from the movie. And I feel like maybe the movie is what people will think first when they hear Little Mermaid. But the Hans Christian Andersen story, just Hans Christian Andersen in general was someone that I got a little obsessed with reading all about his life and all of his stories. And I feel like Little Mermaid I have just resonated with a lot, since there's kind of that concept of her being this outsider to the regular world, kind of entering it and not being able to connect with it well. And I think that really resonated with me. And I believe that was probably part of what he was communicating with that story too.
Absolutely, yeah. So if that feature does carry through to the Disney movie and or Disney movies, aspects that don't make it into the Disney movies include what's referenced in the opening lyric.
Yeah.
I can feel the blades go in through my feet.
Yeah.
She does a lot of dancing,
yes.
doesn't she? And every time, and she has no voice, of course.
Yes.
But as she's dancing, she can feel, it's like...
It feels like knives going through her feet.
And she dances nevertheless
yes.
for the prince.
Yes.
Who, what's his response to that?
He doesn't respond much at all, even though she's going through this hardship to try to communicate with him.
How could you not see me? How could you leave me? How could you not hear me, see me? These are the lyrics from the chorus. How could you abandon me? How could you just kill me, kill me, kill me? And speaking of killing, she has an opportunity to kill him.
Yes.
And if she wipes his blood on her face, then she'll be able to...
She can go back and just have a regular life. Yeah, but she chooses not to. She chooses to die instead.
Yeah.
Become part of the sea.
And that's an interesting twist.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a tragedy. She throws herself into the sea, and this unexpected thing happens at the end of the story, doesn't it? Where she kind of becomes like a spirit.
Yes.
And she then spends, I think, 300 days or 300 years. She spends 300 years doing good deeds.
Yes.
And then, like a human, she gets to have the eternal soul.
Exactly.
So Sisu seems relevant.
Definitely. She definitely has Sisu. It's definitely, I think, a theme, whether he intended it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the significance of this particular story and its themes to you?
Yeah, I guess I think that first of all, that, like I said before, that concept of being an outsider to the world and her attempts to communicate and not being able to really resonated with me personally, because I've always struggled with communicating.
It's hard to communicate.
Yeah.
Especially if one has complex ideas.
Yes. And if one has, I'm autistic, so that's like a thing that definitely affects my communication. And I think The Little Mermaid was something I really latched onto as a concept of, she goes through all that difficulty, she can't communicate, and no one really sees her for what she is. And I think that then that ending where there's a part of you that wants her to like get revenge maybe on the world, instead she chooses to be good and do good and bring back positive life and energy to the world.
Here's your opportunity, just kill him.
Yeah. She could be like, you missed it.
Kill the friends.
Yeah.
He kind of deserves to die.
Yeah.
And there is this theme of love and the perseverance, the Sisu relates to that.
Definitely, and the healing to kind of come back from that.
Yeah, the idea of giving up the voice, exchanging the voice, strikes me as very significant because, of course, you're using your voice in such interesting ways.
Yeah.
In the Teen Vogue article, one of the sentences that I liked most in it was, "The shrieking on Little Mermaid would make Kathleen Hanna proud." I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, definitely.
So the use of your voice, perhaps specifically on that song, is interesting, given that the story involves a mermaid that has, for a period, relinquished or surrendered or sacrificed their ability to use their voice.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts on that, on the use of your voice throughout the record, and the theme of communication, perhaps through the lens of Appease the Girl? So if I understand correctly, that relates to why are we sticking to that from Little Mermaid and your reference to autism?
Yeah. So I think personally, I mean, communication's always been difficult, and also just not fitting in well, and kind of being an outsider in most situations. definitely ties into this concept of, being able to kind of take my voice back and kind of take my own story back and, scream it out at everybody.
Yeah.
So everyone can, hear what I'm feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that... So that happens right from the get-go, right at the gate with the love song.
Yes.
Track one. How do I tell you that I hate you?
Yeah.
Well, let's give it a go.
This is...
In the opening lyric to that, therefore the opening lyric to the record, a theme is introduced that pops up throughout many of the songs. Why do you come up to me? Makes me think of coming back as well. And right from the beginning of the record then, with that opening lyric, it's raising questions about interpersonal relations, about the proximity of... it makes me think of the prince in Little Mermaid.
Yeah, definitely.
Of this, I think it's in many of the instances, I think male character. There is a sense of discomfort about the proximity of this male character, the way in which the male character is behaving, the way in which the male character is addressing you.
Yeah.
And the way, and this I think is navigated in different ways throughout the record at different times. So why do you come up to me? Why do you sit next to me? How do I tell you that I hate you? So it starts.
Yes.
And then there are other songs, I think, where it's kind of even more assertively putting this male character in its place.
Yeah. Perhaps no right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's turn to that one.
Yeah.
Which is right near the end of the record. Now I know I've been condemned to just be your new fashion trend. What rights do you have to look at me? What rights do you have to stand near me? It's the same kind of situation, and obviously the title answers the question. No rights.
Exactly.
I think that it's so interesting that this intelligent, important, culturally significant negotiation, what could be a negotiation, but then because it's a crisis situation, the behavior of the male character, the prince-like character, is so alarming that it becomes necessary to just say you have no rights, and to boldly, with Susu, persevere in communicating that with one's voice.
Yeah.
That's all very intelligent and important, and then it's really interestingly, I think, also cleverly juxtaposed with the silliness, the intentional silliness of, at the most extreme end of the spectrum, the single Beaches and Peaches, which is a really fun and silly music video too. And something else from the show, the cemetery entry, you made a joke about how serious it was. And how everybody needed to treat it with due deference. So can you reflect a little bit on this juxtaposition of this serious, taking the male character to task, the focus on accountability, and the kind of call for the discomforting male character to have some accountability, and the assertion you have no right in the meantime to do what you think that you can comfortably do. The juxtaposition of that and the silliness.
Well, I think that concept of, and it could be anyone for anyone, but that imposing outside power that's kind of pushing you down is a strong theme, because it's something I think everyone experiences to some degree in their life. But I think, in order to have the sisu to get through it, you really have to be able to be in touch with both sides of your energies and be able to feel, if you can't laugh at it, I don't know if you can get through it and be okay at the end.
So in this, when you say both sides of your energies, is that like the seriousness and the playfulness?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Let's focus on we're going to shift to the song Trickster in a moment. It seemed like an important song to me because, of course, the band is called Loki's Folly, and Loki is the quintessential trickster.
Yes.
Did you see the Loki TV show?
Yes, we did. It was.
So you're speaking on behalf of Loki's Folly.
Oh yeah, we watched it all together.
And did that TV show have any influence on the decision to be called Loki's Folly, or the song Trickster, or any aspect of that kind of playful energy?
Yeah. Well, we had actually named ourselves and written the song before the show came out, so
it was a nice little Easter egg, a nice little treat.
Yeah.
Well done, you got the name.
Got it in there before.
Now you can enjoy the fun show.
Yeah.
I thought of the Loki TV show when you were talking about the kind of stifling, kind of external authoritative force, and it made me think of the TVA.
Yes, definitely.
And which is the time variance authority.
Yeah.
But something that I find really interesting about that Loki TV show is how it kind of pushes the trickster Loki character into being kind of more serious than we're used to him being.
Yeah.
It somehow places him in this role where there's something about his tricksteriness that makes him be the only one that can resolve this very serious situation. Like, everything might cease to exist.
Yeah.
And the plot thickens particularly in the final episode, and there's the character Kang, who is also somewhat of a trickster.
Yeah.
I read in the Teen Vogue interview that the siblings all got excited when the Loki TV show was referenced.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on this character of the trickster, perhaps either through the lens of your song Trickster or through the TV show, where there is something serious to learn from looking at the example of Loki?
Yeah.
It's not the pure silliness, there's a seriousness to it even, or there's a magic to it, a magic that can happen because of the playfulness.
Yeah.
And it can save everyone in some strange way.
Yeah, definitely.
What thoughts do you have about that?
Well, I've been a comic book fan for a long time, so I've even been exposed to Loki through that, and I think both from the show and then also just having named ourselves Loki's Folly, we were partial to him and partial to the Marvel version of him, especially. And I think seeing the different versions of that same character type throughout all different forms of media. I mean, even going back to the original Loki and to mythologies, and how often that concept of a trickster character comes into play, where you see maybe like a Nancy in African mythologies, and
or Coyote.
The Coyote, definitely. That was another one that we thought of a lot. Or characters you see in other comic books like the Joker, or characters like that, where all of these characters, like in the TV show especially too, like they have that function where they do all these off the wall things, and there are times where you hate them for what they're doing, but then in the grand scheme of things, they function in a way that pushes things through and really gets things done.
They're disruptive and agitating.
Yeah.
But if we are in a situation where the person that has no right to do a certain thing is doing the thing, then perhaps it's healthy and necessary for the trickster to come along and be disruptive and to agitate.
Definitely.
And so because I could sense how much you'd been reflecting on the trickster character, I went back to a favorite book of mine by someone called Lewis Hyde, who wrote another book called The Gift. His more famous book is called The Gift. And the subtitle to Trickster Makes This World is Mischief, Myth, and Art. And there's all kinds of interesting statements about the nature of the trickster character. He talks about Coyote, he talks a lot about Loki.
Yeah.
And I thought I might mix things up a little bit by quoting a few passages from this book and seeing what your response is to them.
Yeah.
So let's do a little bit of that, just for fun.
Yeah.
For fun and for science. So let's see. In the introduction, one of the main things that Lewis Hyde finds himself communicating about tricksters in this famous book about tricksters is that in spite of all their disruptive behavior, tricksters are regularly honored as the creators of culture. Trickster, the culture hero, is always present. His seemingly asocial actions continue to keep our world lively and give it flexibility to endure, which makes me think of Sisu.
Yeah.
I want to argue a paradox that the myth asserts, the trickster myth, that the origins, liveliness, and durability of cultures require that there be a space for figures whose function is to uncover and disrupt the very things that cultures are based on. So the health of the culture, for it to stay healthy, there needs to be this trickster character who pokes fun at these distinctions, and in a way maintains them through poking fun at them, which makes me think of the Loki TV show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's that's definitely what he does throughout that show.
And you celebrate Loki, the specific folly of Loki, by honoring it in the band name.
Yeah.
Could you expand a little bit on the magic, like the trickster magic? What being silly in the way that the trickster is enables to happen? Yeah.
Well, that particular passage definitely also made me think of like the Harlequin in the Commedia dell'arte, and that whole concept too, where I mean the characters in that type of play all need to intertwine well, and you won't work without a Harlequin or without a trickster to play.
And the fool in Shakespeare.
Yes,
I
exactly.
Think fool. There's something very serious going on.
Yes.
There, despite silliness.
Despite the silliness, yeah. It's definitely an important aspect to keeping things functional.
Yeah.
I think as someone who doesn't always understand, social structures or social cues just from like a logical standpoint, it's sometimes just confusing to me to understand, maybe pulling back to the autistic thinking, but sometimes the structures of how people interact don't logically make sense to me. So I feel like personally there's, I have to break up that concept in my brain just to function. Right.
And sometimes it's because it's actually not particularly logical. It doesn't make a lot of sense. How people, just because it is
what people do.
Normal.
Yeah.
It could be dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And so many of the songs reckon with that, I think. Quoting a little bit from the Trickster again. Well, the chorus goes, "Come over here, it will be a good time. Come over here and get in line. Come over here, we'll have some fun. Will it be the same looking down my gun?" That's the interesting. On the one hand, we're just going to play a game like in Truth or Dare.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry, it's just a game. But something liberating can occur as a result of playing in the way that the trickster plays.
Yes, something a little sinister.
Yeah, it's sinister, but also I just happened to watch Lilo and Stitch as well.
Yeah.
So Stitch is like a little trickster character.
Definitely like Stitch.
So let's dip in on a few of Lewis Hyde's other assertions about the trickster, because it's certainly not just the trickster song, but the whole ethos, I think, of the Sisu record. So there's a chapter called "The God of the Crossroads," and we were talking about opportunity before and the missed opportunity to kill the prince, silly Little Mermaid. He looks at the etymology of that word opportunity and highlights that it comes from the Latin word porta, which is an entrance or a passage through. So the word is associated with doors and entranceways like portal, which makes me think again of the variants in Loki TV show, porch, portico. And an opportunist, then, is what offers an opening, or what stands before an opening, ready to go through. And then the word pore as well, like a skin pore. A pore, a portal, a doorway, a nick in time, a gap in the screen, a looseness in the weave, These are all opportunities in the ancient sense. Trickster, then, is a poor seeker. He keeps a sharp eye out for naturally occurring opportunities and creates them ad hoc when they do not occur by themselves. And what do you think of this idea of the trickster as kind of the door opener? Is that something else that's part of the Loki's Folly?
Yeah, that's a very cool concept. I think, sorry, that's very cool. Yeah, I think that is accurate to the type of character we're definitely pulling on, especially for the song and probably for some of the other songs too, with that concept of kind of getting into different, exploring different opportunities and different ideas. Maybe with Into the Darkness a little bit too, where there's that kind of crossover of song to song.
Into the Darkness is right before Trickster, isn't it? And that one, is that referencing particular myths or stories, like with the Cuckoo Boys? Yeah,
we were definitely. So I was pulling that line. I was pulling from The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. In the, I want to say 5th volume, he has this character, the Cuckoo, which is this alien space creature that kind of implants itself in your brain and feeds on your fantasy and your imagination. And one of the characters, Barbie, gets it caught in her brain, and she has to go in and go on this adventure into her mind to escape it. And when she finally meets it and kind of battles it, it's her younger self, and it's in this normal house instead of the fantasy world outside. And she has to kind of bargain her way out of the situation. And I think also pulling that story also obviously reminds me of something like Alice in Wonderland, or that kind of story where you enter this other world and it's maybe more magical and more fun than the real world feels. And that concept of wanting to escape to it, and in the end having to stay in reality and come back from that.
This is also the songs that made me think most of the Loki TV show, actually, particularly the lyric, "There are some things you just can't pretend don't matter," because the Trickster to some extent wants to just have fun and play and do his Trickster stuff. But the Loki TV show does a good job of forcing the Trickster to recognize that he has a function, and that if he doesn't perform his function, everything will end, including fun. So he's in a bind.
Yes.
And I feel like Into the Darkness has that same recognition. Like, the playful part of you is on board with recognizing some things you just can't pretend don't matter. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's the most meta one too, where it's kind of reflecting on storytelling and television. Like right at the end, I'm so sorry, my friend. Your television is pretend, and all your books and friends have turned to ash in your hands. Do you have any reflections on how that song ends, given that the book references, the television show references, they're not really falling to ash in your hands in the record, because they're all being animated and put to life to be in the spirit of Sisu and the Trickster. So what is this song saying about storytelling, narratives, about certain books and things that might be on the television that do turn to ash?